Welcome back to the Snowpointcast. Today we're going to be looking at a deck from Majestic Dawn to Call of Legends called Megahippo. So this is actually an archetype that I made up just because I saw a couple cards that I thought worked really well together, and then after playing a few games, turns out they did really work well together. So I'm making a deck list, deck profile, just to show you guys kind of what's going on. So let's get into it. Starting off with 3 Hippopotas, 70 HP, fighting type. Push down for 1 Colorless does 10, and then forces your opponent to switch their active with a bench, which can be really good against Spiritomb for sure, because that exists in this format. And then Endeavor for a fighting 2 Colorless does 30, flip 2 coins, this does 20 damage for each head, so can be good as well because you do play DCE, good to keep in mind, not an attack you're going to be using that often though. Okay, playing 3 Hippowdon, so Hippowdon's got 110 HP, Sand covers the Pokebody, Sand cover is really good, so in between turns, as long as Hippowdon is your active Pokemon, put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's level X between turns, so this can stack up a lot of damage, and even 10 can be a big difference because it's like the difference between needing an additional energy to kill a Luxray level X, so great on Sand cover. Save Sand for 1 Colorless does 20 plus 10 for each energy card attached to this Pokemon, so that's why DCE is in here, mainly just to buff that up. But then also, before doing damage, you can search your discard pile for a fighting energy card and attach it to Hippowdon. So great acceleration there, and then it also buffs your damage, and then it kind of has a lot of synergy with the deck, with a couple of cards that we're going to get into here in just a sec. And then Ground Quake for 2 fighting, double Colorless, does 80, and then it does 10 damage to each bench Pokemon that isn't an evolved Pokemon. So kind of a niche attack, but can be useful against SP decks in particular because you do 10 to everything. I mean, if they have a Garchomp level X or a Garchomp that they might level X, maybe not the best attack because Save Sand just hitting for mega damage can be good, especially if you're one-shotting something. But good to keep in mind, especially with Sand cover. The Sand cover, Ground Quake, and you play Yanmega, so that's Snipe as well. It's good to keep in mind together. And then also Hippowdon level X plays a Snipe attack, so 130 HP, you get a bit of a buff on HP there. Sand Reset, before we talk about the attack, is the power. It's the main reason you're playing it. So Sand Reset, once during a game on your turn before you attack, each player shuffles all cards in play, excluding Pokemon and supporter cards, into his or her deck. So all energy, all tools, all stadium cards. Really cool. Also can help swing the momentum, right? Like let's say your opponent gets a couple attachments ahead of you and they start, building a board that's better than yours. You can just say, hey, Sand Reset. Hopefully we can both reset, and you have a lot of attacks that can, like Save Sand, for example, is only 1. So you could just slap a DC on after Sand Reset and then maybe do some damage. And then Double Shoot is the attack. So for fighting, double Colorless, discard 2 fighting energy cards attached to Hippowdon. Choose 2 of your opponent's Pokemon, benched Pokemon rather. This deck does 40 damage to each of them. So mostly, this attack isn't really used, but it does have niche uses, especially now that Yanmega's in the deck, because Yanmega also snipes 40 against sprites. Because if your opponent has an 80 HP Pokemon or less, you can hit it like once a piece with linear attack with Yanmega, which just snipes 40, and then this could maybe clean up a game if you have 2 prizes remaining. It's good to keep this attack in mind because especially with Yanmega, it does get a lot better in this format. So speaking of Yanmega, we're playing 2 Yanma, 50 HP, grass type, free flight. If Yanma has no energy attached to it, Yanma's retreat cost is 0, so that's amazing. Great Pokebody. It's one of the best starters in the deck because you can switch to anything that you'd like to. We're not going to talk about the other stuff because you don't play grass energy. And then you play 2 Yanmega Prime. So Yanmega Prime, 110 HP, which is pretty decent for a stage 1. Both your stage 1s are pretty tanky, all things considered. Insight is the Pokebody, so great Pokebody. If you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, all of Yanmega Prime's attacks are free. So that's the real awesome attack. And it kind of has synergy with Sand Reset, right? Because you shuffle all the energy back and you're like, well, I could save Sand for 20 or 30, or I could just use Yanmega, which is usually what you want to do after a Sand Reset. So the attacks on Yanmega, linear attack for the first one, for a for a grass and a Colorless, or free because you're never paying the cost. You snipe 40 Sandward, just does 40 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So great to be able to snipe the bench for 40, depending on if there's something that you expect that's going to be coming up and you want to hit it with a Hippowdon. Yanmega also has free retreat, so good to keep in mind because you can swing with it, snipe something, and then retreat into a Hippo if that's what you want to do. And then Sonic Boom for 70 for free because you don't play grass. It isn't affected by weakness or resistance, but just swing for 70. If you put an Expert Pelt on there, you're swinging for 90 for free, which, especially after shuffling all energy in play back, can be a pretty big deal because you're swinging for 90 and your opponent's probably going to be attached passing next turn or not hitting you for very much damage. So being able to go from Sand Reset, we're going to reset slow, just kidding, I'm hitting you for 90 for free is kind of crazy. So really cool card there and a great buff to the deck. You're also playing 2 Uxie. Uxie's got 70 HP, Psychic type, setup is the ability, main reason you play it. When you bench Uxie, you could draw until you have 7 cards in your hand, so it's a great support Pokemon, pretty staple in this format. And then Psychic Restore for 1 Colorless does 20. You may put Uxie and all cards attached to it to the bottom of your deck in any order. So being able to heal or put Uxie back so that you can use setup again later is also really nice and good to keep in mind. Then you're also playing one Uxie level X. So Uxie X has got 90 HP. Trade-off is the power. So once you're your turn, you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one of them in your hand, put the other at the bottom of the deck. So great late games consistency once you've used an Uxie. If you have this in the active, you can either attach, retreat it, because you have to level X it, right? It has to level X in the active. But being able to get trade-off, especially to dig for resources, you're seeing 3 cards a turn, essentially, with your top deck. So great support Pokemon to get into play. And also, because you play DCE, it's a decent attacker. So for 2 Colorless or double Colorless energy, Zenblade does 60, and then Uxie can't use Zenblade during your next turn. So with an extra belt, you do 70, and versus some Psychic weak things, like Toxicroak G, can be really good to have as well as an attacker. You're also playing one Relicanth. Relicanth has 80 HP. Grand Swell for 1 fighting. Choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack does 30 damage to that Pokemon for each Pokemon tool and stadium card your opponent has in play. So just the snipe is really good. The main reason this is in here is for Luxray level X. You already have a pretty okay time against that, but they can, if they're playing really well and you're playing a strong opponent and they play around, your Hippowdons and they just go, I'm going to just Garchomp your Hippopotases before they become problems. And then you run out of Hippowdons at one point. Let's say they kill your active and they've been killing your Hippopotas. You can't find a recovery card. You're not just going to get swept by a Luxray because Yanmega's lightning weak. So being able to, avoid that at all cost, walking into a Luxray with a Yanmega is really not what you want to be doing. But Relicanth Grand Swell, if your opponent has 2 energy gain in play, which usually they do, especially if they've been playing correctly and attacking you with a Garchomp level X, they'll probably have 2 gains in play because Luxray also utilizes gain. And so Grand Swell, if they have 2 gains in play, you're doing 60. Luxray's fighting weak, so you do 120, and Luxray has 110 HP. So you're able to knock it out with the Relicanth for 1 energy after they've killed your Hippowdon active. So really cool use there. Also, there's some other, being able to snipe with it is really good. If your opponent has a bunch of tools in play in a stadium, you can just snipe 140 or 120, maybe 150 if they have 4 tools in a stadium. So good to keep in mind because it's just a really good attack. And then Amnesia, kind of cool as well. So for fighting colors, does 30. And then choose one of the defending Pokemon's attacks. That Pokemon can't use that attack until your opponent's next turn. So I'll tell a quick story. I went to Utah this weekend and played these decks with a buddy of mine, Bodie Tracy, and I started Dialga. He started this card. He went Attach Pass. I went Attach Pass, and then he went Attach Expert Belt Amnesia for 50. You can't use Deafen, so he stopped me from using trainer card, or stopped me from locking trainers rather, and bought himself an extra turn of using trainer cards, which is a really cool use of the card, especially if your opponent only has like 1 attack. That's really useful. Being able to shut that off can be really good as well. So also playing one Regirock, so 90 HP. The main reason you play this is for Regicycle, and the attack is really bad. We'll talk about that really quick. So Fighting Colors is 40. Flip a coin of heads, his attack does 40 plus 30 more damage. Awful. Sonic Boom does that for free. But Regicycle is really good. So once during your turn, before you attack, if you have a Fighting Energy card in your discard pile, you may discard 2 cards from your hand, then attach a Fighting Energy card from your discard pile to Regirock. So this comes in play because you play another stadium called Stark Mountain, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. It essentially just moves around fighting energy. So you accelerate to the Regirock, you move the energy to a Hippowdon, and then you're able to kind of accelerate energy in that way as well. And having more energy helps your safe stand do more damage, so it's kind of just in there for that reason. As well as there are a lot of trainer locks decks in the format, like Vileplume, Spiritomb, Dialga, all lock trainers. So if you have a hand where I have a bunch of trainers and I don't really want to get disrupted by a judge or something, and then have to draw into these trainers, you can be milling your hand or thinning your hand with Regicycle, just discarding cards, which is kind of cool as well. So let's play one Azelf. Azelf is mainly a Pokemon consistency card. So 70 HP. Time Walk, when you bench Time Walk or bench Azelf from your hand, you can search your prizes for a Pokemon, show your opponent, and then replace it with a card in your hand. So great for finding your level X's, especially. You only play 1 Hippowdon and 1 Uxie. So if you prize those guys and you need them, you just have to draw it, or have the Uxie, or the Azelf rather, which is kind of why it's in there. Okay, getting into the trainer cards, we're going to be playing 4 Junk Arm. So Junk Arm, discard 2 cards from your hand in order to use this card. Take a trainer card from your discard pile, show it to your opponent, and put it in your hand. So just a great card in terms of recovery, and one of the best cards to bring both Hippowdon and Yanmega together in synergy in this deck. So for 1, Hippowdon safe stand needs fighting energy in the discard pile, so you just ditch fightings with the Junk Arms, and it turns out to be a good thing for you because then you can accelerate them onto your hippos. And Yanmega, insight is based off matching the cards in your opponent's hand. So Junk Arm being able to manipulate the cards in your hand. Let's say you need 3 less, you could just Junk Arm for another card, play that card, play another card in your hand, and then you're there. So just the item or the hand manipulation is really good with Yanmega as well. And there's so many good trainers that we're about to get into. Just recovering them is really, really insane as well. So just a great card in the deck, probably the best card in the deck. That's why you play 4 of it. You play 2 Expert Belt as well. So Expert Belt is a tool card. Touch one of your Pokemon, that Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage, and then they also have 20 more HP. So it makes your Hippos and your Yanmegas really tanky, 130 HP, 150 if you have the Hippo X, and then it also makes their damage really good. Like I was saying, free Sonic Boom for 90 is really insane. It's like essentially a Gyarados attack without having a requirement of Magikarps in discard, just same hand. So great tool for buffing your energy and getting you to stay alive for a little bit longer. You're still playing 2 Lost Remover. This is one of the best cards in the deck as well, I think, because there's so many good special energy in this format. SP plays double colorless energy. Dialga plays special metal, plays warp energy. Gyarados plays rescue energy. This is one of the only cards that gives you a shot against Gyarados. It's a really bad matchup. It's like probably your worst matchup in the format, and it's very bad. But something you can do is if they have a rescue energy, you know, if you kill their Gyarados, they just get it all back and then they drop it all back down with broken time space, and that's just really awful for you. So something you can do is before you knock them out, Lost Remover Judge, and then hopefully they'll draw. And even if you can Stadium Bump, that's even better because then they have to hit a broken time space, and then force them to hit, you know, multiple cards to be able to attack you next turn. That matchup's pretty much just, it's like 80-20. It's really, really hard because your Hippos are weak and your Yanmegas get one shot. Even if you have an expert belt, they can just go Crobat Poketurn. So it's a really bad matchup. But Lost Remover is great at getting removing special energy, and there's a ton of really good special energy in this format. You also play 2 Pokemon Communication. Choose a Pokemon in your hand, show it to your opponent, put it on top of your deck, and then search your deck for a Pokemon. So it's just good Pokemon consistency. You play a pretty thick Pokemon line, so being able to switch a Pokemon that you don't need right now, like a Yanma or Yanmega or a Regirock or whatever, and then find a Hippowdon or a Yanmega Prime at a time that you need it. It's just really clutch because you play a lot of Pokemon, so you have often access to use Communication. And then with Junk Arm, it just ups your consistency into the late game as well. So you play 1 switch. You're playing 2 switch cards in here because Hippowdon has a 4 retreat cost and you never want to retreat Hippowdon. But sometimes you want to switch it, right? Like let's say they hit into your Hippowdon and it's got an extra belt. You don't really want it to go down, give your opponent 2 prizes, but you have another Hippo waiting in the wings. You can switch into it on another Hippo or switch into Yanmega or Uxie, depending on whatever the situation allows. And then leave your damaged one on the bench so that if your opponent, force your opponent to have a snipe card like a Garchomp level X or, you know, a reversal or something that can bring it up in order to take those prizes, and then just, you know, stifle your attackers. It's kind of a classic Pokemon strategy where you're just going to say, I'm not going to get knocked out. I'll attack with this one. When it dies, then I at least have the other one that I can guaranteed attack with. So yeah, switch is really good. You play 1 warp point for the same reason. Just to be able to switch attackers is really good. Sometimes you want to snipe with Yanmega or whatever. And then also sometimes forcing your opponent to switch can be good as well. So yeah, you play 2 of those, and with Junk Arm, you have access to them pretty much the whole game as long as one is in the discard pile. Also playing a Luxury Ball. So Luxury Ball is a great card with Junk Arm, probably one of the best. Search your deck for a Pokemon, excluding Pokemon level X, show it to your opponent, and put it in your hand. So it doesn't find Uxie or Hippowdon, but it finds every other Pokemon in the deck for just a trainer card. And then you can't use Luxury Ball if it's in your discard, but the great part about Junk Arm is it takes it out of your discard. So you can just use it again, like if you're trying to stream Yanmegas, that's a great option to be able to do that. We're also playing 1 VS Seeker. Take a supporter card from your discard pile, put it in your hand. So just being able to have access to late game supporter cards. As soon as you get a VS Seeker in your discard pile, all of your Junk Arms become the supporters that you've played. So that's awesome for your supporter consistency. And you just play 1 of because you know, it's not crazy useful all the time, but as soon as it's in the discard, all your Junk Arms being supporters is just way too good not to play 1 of. Then you're also playing 1 Night Mane. It's just kind of a Pokemon recovery card. Shuffle 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy from your discard pile into your deck. Kind of staple for the decks in this format that play a not so thick lines. Like you're only running a 3/3 Hippo line because you played level X, as well as a 2/2 Yanmega. So, you know, with expert belts, that is more than 6 prizes, but sometimes you want to attack with like 4 Hippos in a game or 3 Yanmegas, and Night Mane just allows you to do that. Okay, so you also play 2 Stark Mountain. Stark Mountain is able to you're able to move an energy from one of your Pokemon. That's why the Regirock's in there. So you can move a fighting or fire energy from one of your Pokemon to another one of your fire or fighting Pokemon. So just mainly in there, the plays I was talking about before, accelerate to Regirock, move it to Hippowdon to do more damage. Or if you switch, you can keep the energy alive by moving it from the old Hippowdon to the new one. And then you're also doing more damage with the new one. So it's got a lot of uses in the deck that are really nice. Also getting into supporter cards now. You're playing 4 Collector, pretty staple in this format. Search your deck for 3 basic Pokemon, put them in your hand. Just a great setup card that almost every deck in the format plays because it's so good. You're also playing 3 Professor Oak's New Theory. So shuffle your hand to your deck, draw 6. Seems kind of meh, but the main reason that's such a heavy count is because finding double colorless energy is so good. If you've attached to a Hippowdon, all of a sudden your save sand's doing 20 more damage. So being able to have that access, as well as access to double shoot and ground quake, if you need to have those, is nice. And DCE, there's nothing that can search DCE. So you play 3 pawn just so that you can hopefully draw it. You're also playing 3 Judge. Judge both you and your opponent shuffle your hand to your deck and then draw 4 cards. So great for Yanmega. It's the main reason it's in there. You just match their hand automatically, and then you can attack with Yanmega. Be sure not to play another card, even if you want to, because then you can't, unless you have an Uxie, right? Like you can play a card and then Uxie. Usually Uxie first if you have a playable, just in case you want to play that card as well. But yeah, just being able to do that, as well as Judge has a really good play with Sand Reset. So like I was saying, Sand Reset's awesome, and especially against an opponent that has a board built. And SP is great at building boards, right? They go Cyrus Conspiracy for a Cyrus Conspiracy, energy and a tool, or energy and a galactic tool, and then they can keep doing that turn after turn, and they usually build a pretty good board. So you want to Sand Reset them, but they also can get a Power Spray with their Cyrus Conspiracy, right? So they can stop you from using Sand Reset, and in counteraction to that, you can Judge them before you Sand Reset to get that Power Spray out of their hand. And you know, if they draw it off the Judge raw, then you know that's just the way we like it. But honestly, most of the time they won't, because it's 4 is not that many cards in the deck. So being able to disrupt that way, as well as the Yanmega synergy, just worth playing 3. Because I mean, drawing 4 is okay, but disrupting your opponent and also being able to guaranteed attack with Yanmega is quite good. You're also playing 2 Bebe Search, so just help them with your Pokemon search consistency. Choose a card from your hand, put it on top of your deck, and then search your deck for a Pokemon. Reveal it to your opponent, put it in your hand. There is a lot of trainer lock, like I was saying, in this format. Plume and Spiritomb and Dialga all lock trainers. So if you get caught without, you know, a fair amount of setup and you get trainer locked, you can't use Communications or Luxury Ball. So not being able to use those can hurt, but that's why we play 2 Bebes, just because there is a lot of good trainer lock, and this just gets through that. And also helps you find your level X Pokemon, because Luxury Ball can't do that. Communication can, Bebes can as well. So it just helps you keep your Pokemon search consistent as well. So you're also playing 1 Copycat. So Copycat, shuffle your hand to your deck, draw a number of cards equal to the number of cards in your opponent's hand. So the main reason that you play one of these is there's 2 ways to counteract Yanmega. Is you either try to get your hand down to like nothing and see if your opponent can burn their hand, and if they can't, like if they have 2 energy, then they're kind of just stuck. But usually you're not, because you have Junk Arm and you can just ditch things. Or they build a really large hand, which is the better option, honestly, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. If they build a hand of like 8, finding that is really difficult, because you have to have like Uxie, and then you also have to have like an Uxie level X to trade off as well. And if they get even bigger, then it just becomes impossible to attack with Yanmega. But you play 1 Copycat just because you can say, hey, you have a 10 card hand. There's no way I'm going to hit that, but I'll just Copycat it, and then I match you, and then I can attack with Yanmega. Okay, so getting into the energy cards, playing 4 double colorless energy, just really great with Hippowdon and Uxie, and worth 2 for save sand, so you're just attacking for more damage. It's great. And then you also play 9 fighting energy, just because fighting energy and ditching it with Junk Arm makes your attacking consistency really high for a lot of damage. So yeah, 13 energy just kind of makes a lot of sense in a deck that does more damage based off the energy you have on Hippowdon. Okay, well, this has been Megahippo from the Majestic Dawn MD-CoL Legends format. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to them. And thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.